We have the integral of cosine or cotangent to the fifth x times sine to the fourth x dx. Now the idea with trigonometric integrals is basically integrating a integrand with trigonometric functions in it, typically a product. Usually you have sine and cosine, and other times you have tangent and secant. But in a case like this, you have cotangent and sine. It's not really a big deal, you just simplify it. And if we recall that cotangent is cosine over sine, let's rewrite it like that and say that this is equal to the integral of cosine to the fifth x over sine to the fifth x times sine to the fourth x dx. Now this is pretty much simple algebra here. We have sine to the fourth x up here, and we have sine to the fifth x up here. And what we could recall from algebra class, x to the a over x to the b, or however you learned it, equals x to the a minus b. You subtract the exponents here. In this case, this is going to be sine to the 4 minus 5x, which is sine to the negative first x, which is not the inverse sine. Recall from algebra, again, that a to the negative 1 equals 1 over a, for example. So this is the same thing as 1 over sine x. Now we have the integral of cosine to the fifth x over sine of x dx. And then let's expand cosine fifth to the x to cosine fourth to the x over sine of x cosine x dx. Whenever you're doing trigonometric integrals, what you want to do, or make sure that you recognize, is that when you see an odd power for like cosine or sine, or then you want to expand it like this. That way we could set this equal to the integral, let's put this as cosine squared x, quantity squared, over sine of x times cosine of x dx. Now can we use a u substitution? Well, let u equal the denominator and see where that takes us. So if we let u equal sine of x, then du equals the derivative of sine of x, which is cosine of x. And don't forget the dx. Well, we have cosine of x dx right here, so we could substitute that in for du. Okay. However, we have a cosine squared x right here. That's not really a big deal. We could use the Pythagorean identity. Recall that sine squared x plus cosine squared x equals 1. How do we get cosine squared x by itself? We subtract sine squared x from both sides. So it equals 1 minus sine squared x, and we'll substitute that in right there. So again, cosine squared x equals 1 minus sine, I'm going to write it as sine x squared. Okay, so that whole thing is squared, okay, and that's over sine of x at the integral cosine x dx. Now let's make the substitution. Everywhere I see a sine of x, I'm going to put a u. So that's going to be 1 minus u squared, quantity squared, over u. That becomes du. And everything else is pretty much algebra from here when you're simplifying the integrand. That's basically all it comes down to. So that's going to equal the integral, let's square that, so that's 1 minus 2u squared plus u to the 4th over u du. And I'm just going to break that up into 3 fractions with common denominators, and then I'm going to at the same time split it up into 3 integrals. So the first one is 1 over u du minus the integral of 2u squared over u, okay, and finally the third one, du, plus the integral of u to the 4th over u du. Okay, now recall that every time you see like 1 over u du as the integrand, or if you see like 1 over x dx, that's always going to be the natural log of that variable that you're using, so in this case u. So this equals the natural log of the absolute value of u, to be more specific. And that's going to be subtracted by the integral of, now just like before we subtract the exponents, that goes away, that turns into a 1, because 2 minus 1 is a positive 1. So you're left with the integral of 2u du. Okay, this 4 minus 1 is a positive 3. Okay, so that becomes the integral of u cubed du. So now it's basically power rule from here. Okay, so the integral of 2u is the same as 2 times the integral of u is 1/2 u squared, plus the integral of u cubed is 1/4 u to the 4th, and then don't forget the plus c. Now 2 over 2 just cancels. Now we have to go back and substitute back in for u. We said that u was sine of x, so let's go ahead and make the substitution back, and that equals the natural log of the absolute value of sine of x, okay, minus sine squared x plus sine to the 4th x over 4 plus c. And that is the answer right there. So again, take these problems slow, especially when you're first learning these problems, and just never give up on your passions and what you want to do in life, and have a nice day.